Imagine a door slamming shut, a door you absolutely need to get through, right now. Except this isn't just any door, it's a person's airway, and on the other side, their very next breath. So today, let's dive into the amazing tools designed for that exact critical moment.
You know, in the world of emergency medicine, very few things escalate as quickly as a blocked airway. It's a sudden, terrifying countdown. The body is screaming for oxygen, but the path is completely, totally shut off.
The medical term for this nightmare scenario is laryngospasm, and what's wild is that it's actually a protective reflex that's just gone completely haywire. The vocal cords, which are supposed to be open so we can breathe, suddenly clamp shut all on their own. It's like a bouncer at a club deciding nobody else gets in, ever.
And let me tell you, this is not just some theoretical thing they teach in med school. As this 2020 review points out, laryngospasm is a very real, very dangerous event. It's exactly the kind of thing that first responders and anesthesiologists practice for over and over again, because when it happens for real, you only get one shot to fix it.
And what happens when the airway is blocked? Well, it's a terrifyingly fast domino effect. First, oxygen levels just plummet. The sheer effort of trying to breathe can actually cause fluid to fill the lungs. Then the heart can start to slow down to a dangerous crawl. And while these stats might seem small, they can ultimately lead to the worst-case scenario, cardiac arrest.
So that brings us to the big question, the critical challenge. When that door is slammed shut and locked from the inside, you can't just force it open. You have to find a totally different way in. But how? Well, this is where medical innovation becomes just, well, brilliant. Instead of trying to fight the blockage head-on, some smart people came up with an ingenious workaround, a brand new path for air that just goes around the problem entirely. They're called supraglottic airway devices, or SADs for short. Now, the name sounds super technical, but the concept is beautifully simple. Supraglottic literally just means above the glottis, which is the opening to your vocal cords. So, these devices are designed to slide into the throat and create a sealed channel for air that sits right on top of the problem area, completely bypassing those slam-shut vocal cords.
But here's the thing, not all of these devices are created equal. As you can see here, they work in different ways. Some use a little inflatable cuff to get a good seal, kind of like a tiny inner tube. Others, like the eye gel, use a special, soft gel that's pre-formed to just wedge perfectly into place. So, how do you figure out which one is the best when the pressure is on? Well, someone did a study to find out exactly that.
So, which one is the best? To find out, researchers set up the ultimate field test. They didn't care which device worked best in a perfect, well-lit hospital room. No, they wanted to know which one worked when things got real. So here's how they did it. They took 505 patients and had less experienced operators, people like combat lifesavers and junior doctors, try to insert these 5 different devices. And here's the real kicker. They made them do it in low light to simulate field conditions. This wasn't just a test of a device, it was a test of how simple and effective it was when everything is going wrong. So, with the pressure on, the lights down low, and the life on the line, which tool actually gets the job done? Which one secures that precious airway on the very first attempt? The results, it turns out, were incredibly clear. Out of the 5 devices they tested, 2 of them consistently rose to the top when it mattered most. This chart right here tells a really powerful story. The Supreme LMA, it worked on the first try, over 95% of the time. The eye gel was right up there too. But look at the Slippa. It failed 1 out of every 3 attempts. Think about that. In a life or death situation, that's just not a risk you can take. A 95% success rate isn't just better, it's the standard you need.
But getting it right is only part of the puzzle, isn't it? In an emergency where the clock is ticking and oxygen is running out, every single second counts. So what about speed? How fast could they get these things in?
And once again, the same 2 devices came out ahead. Both the Supreme LMA and the eye gel got the airway secured in just over a minute. But look at the ProSeal LMA, almost 2 minutes. Now, an extra 40 seconds might not sound like a lot, but that is an eternity when someone isn't breathing. That's 40 seconds where permanent damage can happen. In this race, speed saves lives.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The study's conclusion, right here, leaves zero room for doubt. For people without years of specialized training, working in high-stress conditions, the Supreme LMA and the eye gel were just plain better. They were easier, they were faster, and they were more reliable. End of story.
But this military study isn't just about finding the best gear for soldiers. It's actually one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. The constant quest in medicine to make really hard procedures simpler, safer, and more reliable for absolutely everyone.
At the heart of all this innovation is the concept of blind intubation. That basically means securing an airway without needing to physically see the vocal cords, a skill that's really difficult and takes a ton of training to master. These new devices are designed to make that critical skill accessible to way more people.
And this isn't just a one-off finding. A huge systematic review from 2024 confirms that these devices are now a standard part of dealing with difficult airways all over the world. What's also interesting is that it found that newer doesn't always mean better. A lot of the classic designs still hold their own. And just like in the military study, it specifically calls out the iGel as a solid, reliable choice.
So what does all this talk about cuffs and gels and insertion times really add up to? Why does this intense focus on perfecting one little medical tool matter so much to the rest of us? Because it gives us a clear blueprint for how progress happens. First, you pinpoint a really high-stakes problem, like a blocked airway. Then, you design tools to make solving it simpler and faster. Next, you test those tools like crazy, not in a perfect lab, but under realistic, stressful conditions. And finally, you get the absolute best tools into the hands of more people.
So this whole story, from the very first invention of these devices to those low-light trials in the military, it's about so much more than just a clever piece of plastic and gel. It's really a roadmap for democratizing a life-saving skill. It's about taking a procedure that was once only for specialists and creating a reliable tool that a combat medic, a paramedic, or a rural doctor can use to succeed even under the worst possible conditions.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other complex, essential task is out there just waiting for its own brilliant, simple reinvention? What everyday tool is going to be the next one to save lives,